How's everyone doing tonight? Okay, so I have changed some stuff in the setup, so if any technical issues, mention them right away. But let's get building, because tonight's the fun night. Wiring. Okay, so before I get to wiring though, we last left off that the hot end was assembled and installed, the afterburner, and then if you noticed, I put out a video explaining how to do your belts and racking and whatnot. So we have to put these back in. So one thing I did skip when I was putting together the afterburner is the Bowden tube, which is good because I completely forgot. So we're going to do that first, put it into the frame, and then we're going to get on to wiring. So, in case you have noticed, I do have a new camera for the main camera, which means the C920 is now overhead, which means we do have a little bit better picture quality here. So, for anyone curious, for the hot end holder portion of the afterburner, you do have a Bowden tube that comes up here and mounts into the pocket watch or clockwork. So we need to cut a Bowden. Now on the Mosquito, it's 24 millimeters long. Upgrades, yes. So there are fancy tools you can use for cutting Bowden tube, PTFE tubing. Just get a sharp knife. Now I use these ones. Okay, these are supposed to come out. Try not to cut yourself on them. They're oily, so they all stick together. But any sharp blade can cut a PTFE tube. You don't need to buy the fancy tool that some of the vendors try to get you to buy. I've never really needed it. So, with a very sharp razor blade, you can literally just rock it back and forth and press through it. And that's all you need to cut PTFE tube. Yes, the sound issue is fixed. I still am completely not sure what was causing it. I believe it has something to do with the something with the driver or with old hardware or whatever, because it was like mixing and matching different combinations of shit was causing it. And eventually I just gave up, reinstalled everything. I have no extra drivers or anything. So anyway, so we need 24 millimeters. So put that on the line. 24 mil. And then we're going to cut that there. Double check. Close enough. Now, with PTFE tubing, with it being direct drive, you don't need the long Bowden tube that we used to have. However, for this portion here, as you can see, I am using the cheapo stuff. So this is the 2mm ID stuff. This isn't like the fancy Capricorn tube or the Chinese equivalent tube with the smaller ID. You actually, in my opinion, want the 2mm stuff, because this is the portion that goes in here to the hot end. And the reason for you wanting just a slightly wider here, one, it's such a short tube, it's not really going to make any difference. And two, when you do retractions or completely removing or reinstalling filament, just in case there's a blob or anything, you don't want it getting stuck in there. Is it 24 millimeters for the Dragon? I believe there is a slight size difference between the different lengths, depending on the hot end. What you can do, and I'll show you a trick here, I don't know if it's in the CAD, because I think the CAD only has the V6 modeled. But show you a nifty trick here for measuring. So print your parts, and then to figure it out, you get your vernier. And on your vernier, we all know, you know, this is how you measure. Put it back in metric. So this is how you measure, right? But you also have a depth gauge. So in that case, on this size, it's about 18 millimeters, and then measure it into the clockwork, and then, you know, 18 plus 6 is 24. So you can just, you know, measure it quickly. So every vernier does have a depth mic in it, basically. And we're doing 3D printing stuff. We don't need, you know, I don't have the Mitutoyo here. This is just the cheapo Nico. Okay, so with PTFE tube, anytime I'm putting it in, what I do is I take a knife and I just kind of put a quick chamfer around the edge just to ensure that it is sitting flush. So what I'm doing is just knocking the edge off of it on both sides, and that way it doesn't get caught on any radius, and it's not sitting up, for example. You want it sitting flat. So you want to knock off that edge. There we go. And I do that to both sides. It's like peeling an apple. You're just taking just a little bit off. There we go. I tried doing this with like sandpaper or whatever. I find it's easier just to do it with a sharp blade, like an X-Acto knife. There we go. And we take the one side, we put it in, and then if we did our math right, we should have about 6 millimeters sitting up. So let's see here. Where is... Yeah, we're good. Yep, we're good. Yeah, Mitutoyos. Like, I have Mitutoyos at work, but my Mitutoyos, they stay at work. So, yeah, it's a little bit more than 8. Or actually, wait, no, 18 and 6. Yeah, so it's 8. Yeah, we're good. We're good. No, wait, no. 6. Pull it out and double check. Oh, there we go. It wasn't in all the way. Now we're good. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so the reason, Mike, you're hearing a slight audio delay is this is a camcorder now, and it's running through a cam link into the computer. And because of that, it does induce latency. So because there's now latency, the audio is not in sync anymore, so I have to go into OBS and tell my mic to put, I think it's like an 80 millisecond offset on the sound to sync it up to this camera. So the problem is it's synced up to this camera, so that means this overhead cam is going to be slightly out. However, you don't see me talking, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue with this camera. So now we need to get the frame back into frame. And we are going to put everything back together. Okay, so So first we're going to install our hot end assembly here. Wires don't get pinched. Everything sits well on those indexing screws. There we go. That's sitting good. Looks good there. I'm going to put our fans back on. Drop the screws. Okay, so just so if I forget, the longer wire is the 40-20 fan. So that way if I forget and I ask you guys later, you can remind me. So the longer wire is the 40-20. Why aren't you sitting flush? Come on. There we go. Yeah, Raymond, I've done a few videos now since like the instructional videos where I've used like I've recorded with my phone, and then I've also used the OBS to record, and then I've used this mic to record audio, and they all record at slightly different frame rates, and nothing syncs up, and you're chopping up audio to force it to sync, and fun times. Yeah, a little bit of tape or a dab of super glue or some Captain tape, anything to just kind of hold them. Fortunately, I don't actually have VHB tape right now. It's on the list of things to resolve later. There we go. So, and that together. Now this part's going to be fun. Now, if I was doing this on my own on a a weekend, building this, I would do all the wiring for the tool head in terms of crimping everything and putting on the connectors and everything with it off the printer. However, since I'm live streaming this and we're kind of jumping all over the place, obviously I'm not doing it that way. So I'll try and get everything captured as much as possible, but we shall see. So I'm going to pivot that up so get access at everything. So because I am reusing stuff from when this was a 2.4, an incomplete 2.4, but it was wired, some stuff already has connectors on it. So my probe is already wired up. I need to do the fans, I need to do the thermistor, and the heater already has its wire. So the first thing I'm going to do is put all my connectors on the ends here. So let's see here. What can you see? That's probably the best view right there. I'm going to take this chain off just so you guys can see a little bit better. Actually, I'm going to drop it down. So, tools. I am missing my wire strippers. Great, 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 great. So for today's tools, I do have your generic auto strippers. So these, they're good for, I find, just when you're holding the wires. However, in tight spaces, I like to use just your standard type of strippers that everyone has. And then we got the good old Engineer PA09s for crimping. So we're going to start with the most annoying one, which is the thermistor. Now the thermistor is annoying as crap because it has the good old fiberglass insulation. So I'm going to find where we're going to want the end to terminate, which is going to be roughly about there. Now for wiring, jamming everything under the hood, there's different ways of going about it. You can double stuff up. So for example, on the for your heater cartridge here, you can have the heater and thermistor on a single 4-pin instead of two separate 2-pins. I have a tendency to have everything as its own dedicated line. I don't like stuff sharing. I know it doesn't really make sense, but that's just how I wire everything up. Just how it is. So everything I'm going to do is going to be its own connector. So now I have seen other people do it where they cut the wire and solder on like a silicone wire or something and just sleeve it, and that way you have something easier to crimp on. But we're going to crimp directly to this. So let's find out how long we need. About that much. And with wires, it's easier to cut long and then trim than it is to, you know, cut short and then add, just so you know. Yes, I would say it's using separate connectors is kind of a habit that I got from the V2.0 days with Cat 5 cable and having to replace stuff quite often. So we just I got in the habit of just reusing everything on its own. Makes troubleshooting easier for finding breaks or anything. You just check everything individually. I really hate fiberglass insulation. What I normally do is I'll run the stripper on it, and then I'll just go in with snips and literally just cut it away. Because trying to get it all this is the most annoying part of wiring, is these things. Try not to cut the wires. Yeah, wire stretchers are hard to come by. I won't be ashamed to admit I've soldered wires together because I cut one short. I've done it. Now, with your thermistor wires, thermistors work off like resistance, I believe. So you want to make sure every connection that you do along every wire should have a solid, good connection. But with anything that's a temperature probe, you really want it to have a very good connection. So all your crimps are really solid. Any soldering is very solid, because if you add it or modify or make it so that the resistance is different, you can get errant temperature readings. I've worked with sensors that we've used in injection molds where you have like a 10-12 foot wire and it's paper thin with barely any insulation, and if the wire gets damaged or even pinched, it will throw the temperature off and you have to replace the whole thing, and it's like a $300 Kistler sensor or something like that. So you want to make sure you're not, accidentally snipping off some wire here. we go. Hello, Mr. Oaks. Okay, so we're gonna put some connectors on. So Molex Microfit 3s are the go-to. Years ago, when I built my V2, there's a kit on AliExpress. You could like a DIY kit. You buy all the components, and I made my own Microfit kit. So I'm using the Chinese knockoff Molex. At the time, they were much cheaper than what you can find them up for in Canada. But over the years, I have learned these are the greatest connectors. The tabs tend to break off on them, so they don't lock together anymore. So they're kind of like, they work, but they're not the greatest, but I still have them. So I'm going to keep using them until I run out, and then I'm going to recommend that you actually go and buy the legit ones, though, just to save yourself the trouble down the line. So the question I get asked a lot is, for the wires, should I put what end gets the male, which end gets the female? What I tend to do is, if you look at the wires, that's a wiring loom here, I have the connectors that are going to anything be the male, and then the receiving end be the female. That's just how I do it. Normally, think of it as an electrical plug. Technically, you would want the female being live because the connector's inside it, so that way you're not touching there's no risk of touching a voltage. But this is low voltage, and on a Microfit 3, there is no exposed connectors, so it's not really a big deal. But that's just how I do it. I have the females on the ends, and then I have the males going towards them. That's just how I do it. Just whichever way you decide to do it, keep it consistent. The only time I see some people do it backwards is specifically the heater wire, where you do the heater wire for your heater cartridge reversed, and you do that so that way you don't accidentally hook your heater into a thermistor or something, just in case. So, let's see here. Yeah, so these get the pins, and then for the connectors that are female, you'll see they don't have prongs. It's just a box. They get the pins. They don't get the rounded connectors. There's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to crimp, how to do Molex connectors. So this video, I'm not going to go too in depth into it because there are much better instructional videos on this stuff than what I can do. And I really don't want to accidentally point anyone in the wrong direction, especially with wiring. So I do what I do, what works for me, but follow proper guides for all this stuff, especially the high voltage stuff. The high voltage stuff I take a little bit more care in. I'm a little bit more paranoid about because it's high voltage. And luckily with Vorons we don't have high amps really for the most part, so you don't really have to worry about that. So since tonight is going to be just me, a lot of me crimping, anyone has any question about anything Voron related, just ask it. Because I'm just going to be crimping a lot tonight and running wires. Out of curiosity, any update on the manual? I believe all the photos are done. So if you look at like the 2.2 manual, for example, you see all those nice illustrated photos. I believe those are done. It's just the write-up portion we're on to right now. I'm not personally working on the manual, but that's last I saw where it was at. So it is still being worked on. It'll be done when it's done. Not Cyberpunk, when it's done, it'll be done, but like, you know, eventually soon, relatively, hopefully. Okay, so that goes in there. That's good. Actually, I'm going to take this cover off because it's going to be annoying. Now, another thing for the wire management, if you can't get all your connectors and everything to fit under this little printed cover, you do have room behind the motor for a connector or two. There is room back here. As long as nothing sticks out past, you can make stuff work. Because we did make this bigger on the current revision. On 26 back here, it's much smaller. What major style change? Is this a 350? This is a oddball size. It's 330 by 330 by 400-ish. It used to be a 300 by 300 by 400 V1 frame back in the V1.5 days. Do you recommend a Molex connector? For the XY end stops, I'm using the Hall Effect, which just has a DuPont connector. It has its own proprietary connector, but I don't have any more. So I just have a DuPont standard connector plugged into it like you would see on a ramps. Yeah, for the manual, if you have the CAD, you can build it. You can pull up the CAD file, see where everything goes. Let's see here. Like, you have this. This is the entire printer. If you want to see any component, where anything is, you can see it. You can measure screw lengths, you can see everything. So if you're worried about, if you have everything and you want to start building, just start going off the CAD. Like that, I didn't even have that when I did this guy. A lot of the devs have built plenty of Vorons without CAD. So it's not impossible. It just involves a lot of taking stuff apart and putting back together. What electronics do you recommend? SKRs. I don't see the point of a Duet for the cost, really. Now, there are the Chinese Duets that are like, what, $60 US, $80 Canadian. And people are like, well, once you get 2 SKRs plus TMCs plus the Raspberry Pi, you're in the same price. The thing is, you don't have a camera. Pretty much everyone runs their printer with a camera. So you're going to be using Octoprint or some other camera. Just Clipper benefits the Voron more. We've done work with the Clipper dev. There's a lot of stuff in Clipper specifically because of Voron in the V2. So I'm biased against that, but this guy is running Duet, RepRap firmware. So like this is Duet. I got the panel do here and everything. So I have plenty. I've been using RepRap. The only reason this is still running RepRap is because it still works. I haven't had an issue with it, but it's definitely limited. I have a Raspberry Pi sitting behind it just being used as a webcam. So that and the Duets, the 2660s, yeah, they're a little bit more powerful, but they're louder than 2209s. So now, if you already have a Duet, I say use it, but I wouldn't go buy a Duet. Duet gantry code part of baseline. Are you talking about in terms of RepRap firmware? I do believe it is now part of it. They did include it in in the current revisions has it. Okay, so let's do this guy now. So we're gonna do the fans right about there. Yeah, that seems about right. Sure, why not? Yeah. There's a reason Clipper is the go-to firmware for Vorons. Duet, trying to compile Duet, because back in the day, we had to run a custom version of Duet to add the gantry leveling, and this guy has, it's not even a Duet plus DueX, it's Duet plus a ramps expander board that was prototyped for the V2. So this actually has 2208s for the XY. Where would be a good place to mount the camera? There are a few camera mounts on the GitHub now, I believe, under Voron mods, I believe. This guy is sitting on a boom that sticks out off the front, so I can see the full view of it. Let's see here. I don't have it on this computer. Yeah. But there's quite a few mods. Yes, I'm staggering the wire lengths to avoid stacking connectors. And also another reason I'm not, going with doubling up some of the connectors, making 4-pin connectors instead of 8 or 2, is I already have the wiring loom made that way. Because again, I'm reusing the wiring loom from 2.2. Yes, the Pi camera mount, you want wide angle lenses because especially if you're mounting it inside the enclosure, you want a wide angle lens so you can see everything. The taller the builds benefit more, but on the shorter builds, that's why I have mine mounted on a boom that sticks out the front of the printer, is so I can actually get the whole printer print volume in focus and on screen. Thank you very much, Greg. I do appreciate that. In case anyone's aware, any donations that I receive on the stream go to either equipment for the stream. So previous donations have gone towards the cam link I'm using right now. And then anything else also just goes to general Voron development, boards, hardware, etc., etc. I do have a bunch of projects in the pipeline. So nothing goes into my pocket. If it does touch my pocket, it's just to go into my wallet so I can go to somebody else. Most likely AliExpress or something. So I do appreciate that, Greg. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. So because I am reusing a loom here, I'm going to be having to check it every now and then to see which colors I'm going to use. Because the easiest way to do this, I found, is to get a piece of paper, especially if you're using colored wire, and be like, okay, fan positive is orange, fan negative is pink, or whatever, and then bundle everything up and label everything. So my fans, that is, the long wire was the 4020, so this is part fan. So part fan, we're going to have that. Oh, I got black, so that can go like that. There we go. Now, if you are using the PTFE wire, I believe it all comes in black, and then you are going to have to label everything. There we go. That's good. Will an 8-pin connector fit under the hood? I don't have an 8-pin connector. I only have up to 4 pins. But if they're stacked like that, so 4x2, they will fit in there, but they take up quite a bit of room. And then also, unless you have the specific tool to undo anything, if you have like an 8-pin connector and you need to replace a connection for whatever reason, you have to replace the whole thing, unless you have the little specific tool. You have 2 soldering irons, 2. Oh, the make and model of my cheap soldering iron, go to Amazon.com, search by cheapest. It's probably that one. It's like the cheapest one. My TS100 is my TS100. You can find those anywhere. But my cheap one is Yeah, a cheap one. The good one is a TS100. This is what I use for actually soldering. The cheap one I just use now for heat set inserts, basically. Okay, yeah, if PTFE has colors, the Remington brand carries colors, then yeah, definitely get colors. It makes things so much easier. It's not required. I've looked at some other ones, because again, I'm up in here in Canada, and some stuff's hard to find or not worth it price-wise. Okay, so we're going to go longer here. So we'll go right about there. Now, another thing, these are all black. So if you can, get yourself like a silver marker or a white paint marker to put if you need to label anything. So for example, in these wires right here, I got two black wires or two pairs of red and black wires going to connectors, and just looking at them, you won't know. So I'll put a little H on one, knowing that is like the hot end fan or something like that. Because documenting stuff now will make things a lot easier later. So you're not, busting out the multimeter to checking what goes where. I do believe Hakko does have actual inserts specifically for heat set inserts, or tips. I mean, for heat set inserts, they are a thing. I've seen them for Weller, I believe. Or you could just do what I did and just take a conical one and just take a file to it and just kind of make it the shape you kind of want it to be. Yeah, color heat shrink is another option. If you have a label maker, like I have a P-Touch, whatever, label maker. You can use that for labeling them, and then put some clear like shrink wrap around it, or heat shrink around it. So hopefully running these wires won't take too long because I have the loom made up already. I may have to modify a few things. But we shall see. Make sure those stay good. And then when you put the pins into the connector, you should hear a little click. If they don't click, they may not be fully inserted. So you want to double check, give them a little tug test, make sure they don't come out. Because when you push in the other half, it may push it out and you might not have a solid connection. It might be okay at first until the printer starts moving around and then it'll come apart. Okay, so there we go. And now we got to do the motor. So the motor connection, I kind of cheat and stuff it in the back here. Just because this is actually really tight, I'll have the motor connector just kind of back here behind the hot end, not have it sit underneath the thing. So about there. And with your motor, you really don't want to cut these wires too short because you really don't have much. There we go. Yeah, I've never played with the electric screwdrivers. I just got my normal Allen keys. Actually, let's see here. Let me see if I can get a better angle, because I know this is... that kind of works. Properties, configure video. Let's fix the white balance here. There we go. There we go. Okay, has anyone ever made a resin Voron? To my knowledge, nobody has tried printing the parts yet on a resin printer. A lot of the parts are designed for ABS tolerances, so you may run into fitment issues, and I'm not sure how the strength is. So, to my knowledge, I think some people have done a few fan shrouds and whatnot, but nobody's actually done a full Voron or anything of the actual mechanicals in resin yet. I may be wrong, but I haven't seen one. Where is the best place to Molex connector for the XY end stops if using Omron micro switches? I think underneath there's room in the housing, and then you just have the wires come up. Or you can have the wires have the connector on top. On this guy, I have a connector on top because we didn't have wire routing. We only had like an itty bitty little hole. So I have the wire connector sitting on top of the XY bridge actually, instead of below it. What is the depth of the extruder motor? So if you're talking about the thickness of the motor, yeah, this one's 20 millimeter. Give or take, whatever the scales. Is there room in the back? There's not really room because the way the chain comes up and wraps around, it sits pretty much flush. So if you take a look here, if your motor was thicker, this chain would be sitting on an angle. So it would be pushing out. So it'll always be riding on an angle. And near the back, it would hit this chain, essentially. So you really have to go with a 20 millimeter thick motor. Mine are OMCs. So I think LDO and maybe Moons also carries that size. Don't quote me on that though. I just use OMCs. Everything is OMCs on mine. If you're in Canada and the US, OMCs are on Amazon. Not always in stock, but they are on Amazon. So when I crimp connectors, how I tend to do it is I'll start off, and with your connectors, you're crimping it twice with the microfits. You're crimping it on the wire and you're crimping it on the sleeving or the shielding. So what I'll do is I'll strip just a little bit of it, the wire. You don't need a lot exposed. I'll put the PAs, 09s on the crimp for the wire. Put it in so that the wire is in and the sleeving is sitting flush against the side of the crimper. I'll crimp it So now I know I'm crimped onto the wire itself. I'll give it a little pinch, and then I'll crimp the prongs onto the sleeve. There we go. And that's a nice tight connection. Everything looks good. I know it's hard to see, but yes, Molex Microfit 3s are for your wire-to-wire connections. And then the JSTs are for the SKR. Now, if you're using a duet, it would be Molex KKs. If you're using ramps, it's just DuPont connectors. But the Molexes are for the wire-to-wire connectors. Now, technically, you could build a Voron without using Molexes and just solder your wires, but then you would have continuous wires that go from the hot end all the way through the chain, all the way to the end. So if you ever had to take anything apart, it would just make everything a absolute pain. Like, I could see that being an absolute... Let me lock the focus here, because that's annoying. There we go. Okay. Do I twist the wires? I give them a little twist when I remember. As I said, there are instructional videos for wiring that have people with a lot more experience and knowledge than me going over it. I just do what I've been doing and it's been working. They're so short. I find twisting them really doesn't really do anything at this size. Personally. There we go. Okay, so for the motors, find one connection. With OMC motors, the way that the wirings come out, so most of them come with a connector already attached, just a standard DuPont connector. The order of the wires is the order of the wires. Don't be undoing them and changing up the order. Keep that order. So what I do for these is I'll take a motor that I know is good, and I'll match up the wires right off the bat to make sure they're in the proper order. Now, if they're backwards, you can easily fix that by just unplugging the connector in the on your controller, or just going in your firmware and just swapping the motor backwards. But if you have, if it's supposed to be what, blue, red, green, black, and it's blue, green, black, red, you're gonna have fun. So make sure the order remains unchanged. You're gonna have a bad day. So we're going black, green, red, blue. There we go. And we are connected, and now this one will just sit right on here. So I'll run all the wires underneath, and then this one will sit on top, just like that, and then I'll have the other connector there, and it'll go right in. So that's how I'm doing that. You can see my garbage and my vacuum cleaner. Yeah, a lot of the times, it's especially manufactured items, they make the loom all at once and then they install it. And it makes sense in that case because they're just adding extra connections for no reason. Personally, I like having connections anywhere where there's a common maintenance point. So at the toolhead, for example, that's what I would like to see, but it's a cost thing. The reasoning for the reduction of 2060 tooth for the Z-axis, it's 1680 tooth actually. So it is 5-to-1 gearing. The reason for that is right now there's no power in the motors, and there's enough latent torque in the motors even with them off that it doesn't really drop. Now, when you power it off, you will lose a couple steps, usually in the back, because there's more motors back there, or the motors are back there and there's weight. But the extra gearing makes it so that the gantry doesn't, come slamming down on a power outage, and also more accuracy for your Z resolution. So, yeah, you could print a little cover that covers this little back part, but again, it can't stick out past the extrusion. So if you print a little cover here, it can't go past this point. Like this got to clear. So I think we got enough there that we can hook this up. So I'm going to undo my chain because I'm going to have to run everything here. Put this back on. And I am going to have to make up a new wire, or a new run, because as it is right now, I do have the pre-made loom, but that's a pre-made loom for a 2.2, and 2.2 didn't have the afterburner, so I don't have the 4 wires for the motor. I'm going to have to stuff into here. So let's see here. So for running the wires, what I'll do is I'll undo the chain, open everything up, run everything through, and then bend it back into position. Now, I start at the hot end and work back to the controller. Some people work at the controller and work to the hot end. Either way, cut with extra. What you can do, if you're really worried, is run one wire all the way through everything, all the way to the end, to like the furthest corner of your bed, and then an extra 2 feet, and then make them all that long. It's a lot easier and cheaper to cut them long than short. So the only downside to that is when you do start running stuff, you have to deal with this. So I am reusing the silicone wire that I used on my 2.2. I'm not using the PTFE. If you're going new, buy PTFE. It just makes it a lot, easier. The sleeving, the silicone sleeving, is thicker than the PTFE sleeving, and there may be a few people have had issues after several hundred to 1,000 plus hours on wire wear. The cable loom in this guy back here is from a 2.2, and it is silicone wire, and it's been in printed drag chain and then Chinese drag chain the whole time, and so far everything's running fine. I haven't had any issues, but some people have had minor issues. So if you are going new, go with the PTFE lined. But if you already have silicone, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't, be ripping it out of my printer. It's not like, Cat 5 gate, where we were legit telling everyone to rip it out of your printer because it was going to fall apart. So let's see here. I'm just taking off this because I had some of that. Okay, so that's the end. Now I do have my wiring here. This is, I believe, for the, this is for the end stops. So this guy can come out for now. I don't need you. Of course, it's all tangled now. This is going to get annoying. This has been sitting up in my closet for the past month, and it only fell down twice, so it's only covered in a little bit of dog hair. Appreciate that, Domenico. Thank you for watching. Oh, this is all tangled up. 1 second. I'm going to get printer wires tangled up with headphone wires. That's going to be fun. Did I not cut that? Is that why that is? Oh my god. The hell? Just like Christmas lights. You bundle them all up nice and neat and you put them away, and then come next Christmas it's a complete mess again. That's how it is. I swear that's how it is. Okay. PTFE may melt a little bit during soldering, like so does a silicone, but you're really not. You shouldn't be putting that much heat for that long right into it, so you'll be fine. It does melt ever so slightly. I found the silicone melts more than the PTFE, I bet, and I haven't run into any major issues soldering with silicone wire. Yeah, Paul. I stream. I know it's late. I know we have a lot of Europeans that build Vorons, and just looking at my metrics, so I do know we have a lot of Euros. But the problem is I work steady afternoons, so Saturday nights is like the only time I really have to stream, unfortunately. So unless it's like a holiday or I'm on vacation, this is really the only time I have available. So let's start wiring. So this guy's all good. So let's hook everything up, and then we'll go from there. So the hot end, I'm going to have to change over. Problem already. So the hot end wire that I'm using, the hot end heater cartridge, is from Fizek. That's how you pronounce it, by the way. It's Fizek, apparently. Somebody pointed that out. It's not Feistek, it's Fizek. Their heater cartridge comes with a pre-crimped Microfit 3 on it, and that's what I'm using here. Let's see. So it's got this little pre-crimped connector on it, but it's a male, and everything else is female here. So I'm going to have to swap the male I have here to a female. So that'll just be a second here. Hopefully I don't lose that. And in case anyone was wondering, your heater cartridge and your thermistor, there is no male and female. You don't need to worry about that. I run a male, I run a red and black just because of habit. No, wrong ones. Yep, Kilo, mounting a controller to the head, that is totally something that's feasible with Clipper. That's another good thing about Clipper compared to like RepRap firmware or whatever. If you want to add anything to your printer, it just has to be USB, and you have to tell it. So if you want to run, add a separate screen that's running off its own Arduino Nano, for example, you can easily do that. You don't have to hook it up to your main board or anything. It just has to be USB and an MCU that's compatible. So theoretically, you literally could just take a ramps and strap it to this thing and have the ramps with like a random driver on it control everything on the hot end itself. And you would just need, a 24-volt power wire run into it and a USB wire. So that is something that is completely feasible. You, of course, would have to, unless you want to legit strap a ramps to it, you would have to design your own board. And I dropped the wire. Why aren't you locking in here? Let me see here. I may be in a problem. I think my Chinese Molex kit here isn't compatible with this stuff. This gets annoying. Let's get back to this. Galileo. Thank you, Niku. Appreciate it, man. So they have it where they have a male in there. That's why. I got the wrong connector. That's why. There we go. Yeah, Physek. This guy has a duet from Physek in it. And honestly, I bought it back when they first came out with them. And I have had zero issues with it, other than their Wi-Fi chip had some really shitty soldering. So I had some loose not great connectors. So I had some issues with intermittent Wi-Fi connectivity. So I just went and watched some Rossmann repair group videos and learned how to solder. And then I went through and touched up the soldering myself. And ever since then, I haven't had a single issue with it. And it's got, it's probably got 10,000 plus hours of uptime on it, and easily 6,000 plus actually printing. That printer's on all the time. Is there no way to configure Clipper to tell that the Z probe is on a different controller from the Z drives? I'm not 100% sure with programming with Clipper because I haven't dug into that. Literally, my V0 is the only printer I have that runs Clipper at this time. This guy will, though. But it has something to do. I think it is possible, but will require reprogram. Or at least modification to the current programming. There we go. So we are good there. So the Chinese Molex come with these stupid little side connectors. Here, let's see. Yeah, you can see them there, those little wings. I think that has something to do with copyright dodging. Cut them off. They're useless and they take up room. There we go. Okay, so go with hot end first, and this is 20 gauge wire. And then let me get the rest of it here. And yes, everything is spaghetti right now. We will sort this out as we go. Then we got our thermistor, which is, we'll go with pink or purple, so it stands out. Sure, those ones are really connected, because that's the one, if you start seeing your temp graph doing a dance, you probably have an issue with that one. Now, I can't remember which one was which fan. Shit. Let's see here. Which one moves when I undo this? Oh, I missed some comments here. Yeah, Clipper is very specific about timing, because it has to control the USB, or it controls the MCUs over USB. So it has to do a lot of it. Reason it has to do things a certain way is because it has to be very precise on the timing. And if stuff starts getting all kind of funky, then it probably, you're going to run into issues. Okay, so this one, I think, is part fan. I can always change it later. It's not a big deal. How do you wire for switching the chamber fan on and off? I don't use chamber fans, but you would just have it set as another fan, I believe, and then you could set it for temperature algorithms. I believe it's in the default configs. It shows it. Unfortunately, I haven't dug into the clipper configs because I haven't had to yet. I'm gonna probably be doing that this week. Okay, so we got that one. That one. So we got our fans. Now we got our probe is buried under here. Unfortunately, this guy might be short. No, we're good. Cut these extra guys off, save some room. Okay, so we are good there. And now we'll have the motor do that. Now everyone's favorite part, cable management. We try to stuff everything into the hole. So this guy doesn't go. These guys can go under there. You're going to live out here. You're going to go there. You're going to be going there. Totally not under pressure to get this looking good on camera. No, that doesn't go. That won't bend. Great. There's my problem. Okay, so you go there. You go in there. Don't pinch that wire. Why am I pinching that wire? Come on, get out of there. Come on, move. Don't pinch the thermistor wire. Why am I doing that with that? I got tweezers somewhere. I don't know where my tweezers went. Oh. No, that ain't gonna work. Oh, I think we're good. Making sure I'm pinching the... Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. That's good there. That's good there. That screws in there. That's good there. That's good there. Tighten that. And then this one will just kind of connect there. And booyah. It does fit. Okay, let me catch up here. Have I been getting my recent orders from China? I haven't ordered anything, or no, I ordered a bed for this, a flex plate energetic kit 3 weeks ago. I think it still hasn't left China yet. I haven't had to order anything big from China in a while. The last thing I did were these gears. I ordered up. Sorry. They arrived in about a month. Yeah, Kit or Rossman group videos there. Those videos are just, that's something I just put on randomly in the background just to have something on He's got a lot of good tips on how to solder. Just watching him, you just pick up stuff, especially if you ever have to do SMD work. Let me see here. Is there a clearance issue with making the cover bigger? Let me get these in and I'll take a look. I know we made it bigger than what it used to be. It used to be smaller, but I haven't looked into if it could go even bigger. Everything does fit as is, and I do have room in there. It's not like exploding, but yeah. I'm sure if you make it too big, it's going to impact your XY joint or your belt or something up here. Clearance will come into play at some point. Hello from Costa Rica. Hope your weather is nice. Okay, where was I at? Oh yeah, I got to make new wires. So, I don't have wires made up for my motor, so I'm going to do that right now. More silicone wire. So the easiest way I found to do this, take my headphones off here, and if anyone, I'm not piping the music in to the stream. Some people don't like it, so I'm not going to do it. If you want to listen along, lo-fi hip-hop beats to relax to. And then also this way I don't get copyright strikes. So, I'm going to take one wire, normally I would just tape it. But we're just going to make it as long as the rest of this chain. Because I have no problem having extra wire. Good enough. Cut. Make 3 more that are the same. Have the spools fall down and go on adventures. And we're going to cut. There we go. Now we're going to put some connectors on the end of this guy. Have you tried Clipper over V0 runs Clipper? My V2.26 runs Duet firmware or RipRap firmware at the moment. This guy will be running Clipper because it's going to be running a Taco Raven. So I don't know how far I'm going to get in the wiring tonight, but either next weekend we'll start or the weekend after will be me bashing my way through setting up a firmware I don't really use a lot on a controller board I've never used before. So that's going to be fun. Can't crimp with a stripper. There we go. Where does one buy a Taco Raven? You do not buy a Taco Raven. You build a Taco Raven. So what the Taco Raven is, and this was covered on a Voron Live, but I'll give the quick refresher. Over a year ago, I think like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, we started designing our own controller board. So it was a single board solution. Originally, it was supposed to be a hat for the new Arduino board, Manhattan, Downtown. I can't remember what they ended up calling it. But But then we ended up just saying screw it and designed it into its own board, standalone, instead of being a hat, kind of like a ramps is to an Arduino Mega. So we designed the board. It had 2130s as the driver. And it was meant to be a clipper board. It was meant to be a standalone clipper board. Now, you still needed the Raspberry Pi, of course, but it was meant to be a dedicated clipper board. It theoretically could run RepRap firmware, but it was designed from the start to be a clipper board and had, you know, a bunch of neat features that set it apart, like stuff specifically for Vorons in it. Like you could also, you know, feed 34, 32, 35 volts. I can't remember what it was. Whatever the next size up from a 24 volt is, so 36 volts, I think. You could feed 36 volts to your motors by themselves if you really wanted to. So you could have, you know, another power supply in your printer because motors run more efficient at higher voltages and quieter. But the thing was, you know, cost-wise, it wasn't worth it, definitely. It was just, you know, something because we had people in the Voron dev group that have skills, and we ended up just designing a board. Grand Central. Yes, that's what it was. I knew it was something New York-y. It is a 32-bit board. Let me grab it. So, it's on a printed mount, but go to this camera. That is a Taco Raven, right there. So, it had replaceable fuses. You had voltage in and voltage out. You had, let's see here. You had, what is it? You had chamber heater, heater 1, heater 2. So it did support 2 hot ends plus a chamber heater. You can run up to, 5 fans that were controllable, including 2 always-on fans. It supported, 5 thermistors. You had your XYZ end stop, as well as 2 additional end stops. That would be for, you know, extruder run out. What else? Panel do support, 2 IC screen support, 2 ICs, the old ramps. But yeah, so it's really cool until we had to put a hat on it because some of the wiring was screwed up. If you look real closely, these itty bitty little resistors here, we had to replace these by hand. So when I talk about watching lots of Rossmann repair group videos, we had the wrong resistor, so it actually limited the voltage that you could set the drivers to. So we had to go in there and fix that. Oh, another thing, you had fan selectors. So if you want to run your fans at a, you know, like 12 volts with like 12 volt fans, but feed this thing 25 or 24 volts, you could just switch the jumper here because we had regulators to 5, 12, and 24 volts. Yeah, and it had the same ARM CPU as a Duet, I believe. So yeah. So that's Taco. So the downside is it has 2130s, which nobody uses 2130s anymore. 2209s are the thing, but this was made before 2130 or 2209s were a thing. So yeah, so the Gerbers and everything is up on the Voron GitHub. I do believe there is some people playing around with working on the idea of making it a 2209 board, like updating it, fixing the issues it has. Because, you know, it's not nice to buy a controller board and then have to solder stuff and run wires and fix it yourself. So there are some people working on it, but it's not an official project, and it's not something that's going to be sold in any store. SKRs and Clipper are the way to go because that thing cost me more than Duets, put it that way. Yeah, it budget-wise, it wasn't cost effective in any way. Okay, so we gotta put some connectors on. So that's the Taco Raven, which has been sitting collecting dust for almost a year, and I'm finally gonna put it in a printer. So let's match up some wires. So we're gonna go blue. Go blue to blue. And then we'll use yellow to red. go green to brown. And then black to gray. There we go. Make sure everything's connected. There we go. Now, at this point, I got to open up the chains. So, I'm using, if anyone's curious, I am using the China chains. I don't have the IGUS. I haven't used the IGUS. If you want to buy the IGUS, go ahead. But I'm using cheapo China chains, and I haven't had any issues with them. I misplaced my little screwdriver. There we go. These open up real easy with a little flathead. Now, I find the chains that open on the outside of the curve. So, on the chains, you know, they run like this. I like them opening. I think you have the option, depending on certain chains, you can get inside open or outside open. I like outside open. So they open on the outside instead of inside open. That's personally what I like. Does SKR have any board with enough drivers? They do have the GTR, but it uses an expansion board. So it is pretty much like a duet, essentially. And then also there is one board, I think it's called the Fly, but I don't think anyone's got it fully functional in Clipper yet, running on a Voron. Although I think main Marlin now does support the gantry leveling routine that we would need. But who wants to run Marlin anymore? Yeah, the GTR expansion board is $55 plus the GTR itself versus just 2 SKRs. Now, if you want it to be really cheap, what you could do is buy like a really good board for your main board that controls your XY and extruder. It has your hookups for everything, like your heaters and thermistors and whatnot, and then literally just use like a ramps or an SKR Mini for your Z motors and the Z endstop. Because with Clipper, you can mix and match. So for a while there, I was tempted to run Clipper with the Duet and then a ramps. But I ended up just being lazy and just leaving it with rep firmware because it still works just fine. Okay, let's run some wires. So, move this to the end-ish. And we're just going to run through here. Now, you don't want the wires bent at all. And you want to try and avoid wires like sitting on top of each other so that they rub. So, because this has been spaghettified, I may have to fiddle with it a bit. And I probably won't get it perfect. I guarantee you I won't get it perfect. But if you're running everything fresh, take the time to get it as smooth and consistent as possible. Plus there's dog hair in here because these wires have been, sitting around for a while. I'm assuming you're not supposed to have wire or dog hair in your printer, but I'll deal with it later. Okay, so that gotta go there. then what I'm going to do right now is, just so I don't forget the order of the wires for this extruder, I'm just going to take a picture. Don't be afraid to take pictures. Write down stuff as you're building this thing. It's much easier to sort stuff out when you have documentation down the line. Cable comb. I think there's printable ones on Thingiverse. I've seen them. I'm gonna butcher this. I appreciate it, Ilian. I think. Thank you. Why do you like the videos? That's why I'm doing these. I'm doing these because they're helping people. Okay. So now you need to kind of put it back together. Try not to break anything. And just feed that through. And then everything's more awkward when you're doing it on camera. Bayfen Bay, I think, is the go-to for the chains. I bought these chains well before we had picked a vendor, so I can't remember off the top of my head which vendor I bought these chains from. I know my Z chains aren't the recommended chains, but they should work. I don't think they'll be an issue, but they're not the recommended ones, because I bought these back when we were still, trying to figure out which ones were good and not. So, like, I've been running these chains on my X and Y on this guy, but this guy is actually running still printed Z chain. Let's put this back in. So that's good there. Make sure everything's tight. There we go. Okay, so feed all this into the pile here. Now what I do is, after I do one run, do a movement test, make sure everything's moving fine. Make sure your wires aren't too tight. There we go. And there's still plenty of room in the drag chains. You don't want them stuffed. If they're stuffed, that's not good. But as it is now, everything seems to be good. And all the wiring fits. So we're going to move on to the Y chain. Okay. And this, again, is why you only build as big as you need, because this is a pain in the butt with this big of a printer. Oh my God. I do have the ends of this labeled into groups and whatnot, so I know what goes where. These aren't just random wires. Like I do have it labeled. So. Actually, I forgot to put one on for this new motor I made. What gauge is that? I'm assuming you mean the wire. It is 24 gauge wiring, and then except for the heater, which is 20 gauge. Everything else is 24 gauge silicone Strive Day wire, I believe it is. Yeah, it's Strive Day. Could you twist the pairs together and use heat shrink? I believe you could, but I believe that would also mess with the bend radius because this is silicone wire, right? It has it's very flexy. Same with the PTFE wiring. If you're heat shrinking it and putting stuff on it, I think that would add additional friction. That's the issue we had with the tape chains back in the day when we had the using the tape measure with the stuff with the tape chains. After 1,000 hours, the friction was actually wearing away the sleeving on the wires. Okay, and actually, at this point, I'm going to install my XY endstop finally. So let me bring this up so I have room to work on stuff. And we are going to be using a Hall effect board today. Now again, I'm going to say this every time I mention the Hall effect board. If you are building with a Hall effect board, do not install the magnets until the printer is powered up and wired, because you can install the magnets backwards and you really can't take them out once they're in. So, for the Hall effect board, let me see here. So it installs, you have your little printed housing for it. When you install it, the potentiometers and the connector go down, like so. And it sits on the two little bosses there, and then you screw them in. So let me just grab some 2 short screws. And these do not have to be long. Let's use some M36s here. Shoot. I used too short of a screw and I ripped out the thread. I think these are M38s if I'm not mistaken. That's not an M38. I'm running short on short screws. You have to build this board. So what it is, it's a Hall effect endstop. This was actually an item designed for the V24, not the V2.4, the V24. And what it is, it's a little board, and it basically acts like your endstop. It replaces the micro switches, and they're Hall effect sensors. So when you bring a magnet, and these are the 6mm magnets, they're little. When you bring a magnet next to it, it goes off. It detects the magnet. And with the potentiometer, you can adjust the sense distance. So it is a contactless endstop. It's a Gucci little thing. The Gerbers are on the GitHub if you want to make your own. I think you can probably get them all pre-made by JCL, PCB, or whatever that company is in Japan that does that, or China. But it's a standalone. It's a contactless endstop. It is nowhere near required. The Omron or just the micro switches work perfectly functional, and you will never notice a functional difference ever. The only difference is with it being contactless, theoretically it lasts forever, whereas a traditional end stop, I think the levers are only good for like 10,000. Now, will you be homing your printer 10,000 times? Who knows? But you could easily replace a $10 micro switch in 5 years for 5 cents. So this is totally a Gucci item, but every now and then somebody makes a bunch and sells them on the Discord, so just keep an eye out if you want one. So if you're using these, you have to remove 2 screws because you got to use longer screws. I just use the same screws everywhere. Putting it together, because I was just putting it together. So I believe it replaces these 2 screws right here. Yeah. There we go. So I need, let's see here, 16 plus 40 mil M340s. Or 30s, I believe. M330. Yeah, it's a straight cool factor thing, and it does have a little LED in it. So it when the end stop triggers, it goes blink. That's it. It's definitely on the list of cool but totally not needed items. And that's it. So that's installed. Now, I already have the wires for this guy made up. So let's see here. Bring you back out. Bring you over. Bring you in this little gap. Booyah. There we go. So, it does come with a special connector. But I don't have any extras, and it's like a Molex microfit. Once you cut it or once you install it, you can't really undo it. And so this is just a straight up DuPont connector, and that fits right in. It's just a friction fit, but it's tight enough that it ain't going anywhere ever. And then the wires go through this little channel right here. So I'll feed those through one at a time. There we go. And that is the end stop installed. So, take this next set of wires off and run this chain. Same as before. Yeah, Ilian, there is no kit for Voron. That's kind of the thing keeping it from going mainstream. Even like the rail core, you can buy a kit from a vendor and just slap it together. There is no kit for Voron. There are a few people trying to make kits, mostly AliExpress, and there are a few vendors that sell some component kits, but there is no Voron in a box, essentially. We were planning, the devs Midwest Rep Fest, for those unfamiliar, is like a 3D printing Comic Con type thingaling. And we're going to go, a bunch of the devs, me included. It's only like 4 hours from me. We had rented 2 booths, vendor booths. We were gold member donators or whatever. So we were on the shirts and everything. And we were going to set up a presence at Midwest Rep Fest, basically going, look at this awesome printer, build it yourself, have fun. We're not selling anything. And we were going to go and make this huge thing, and then Rona. So maybe next year. But yeah, if somebody wants to go drive to Joel's house with one of these and show him it, go ahead. But nobody's like willing to drop ship their custom printer at this time to one of them. So, can I run sensorless homing? Sensorless homing is not ideal. It's only accurate to a full step, by the way. So using sensorless homing for your X and Y on most printers isn't a major issue. On a Voron, your X and Y need to home accurately, so you can also hit your Z end stop for the nozzle offset. And if that's out a little bit, if your nozzle's not perfectly flat, you'll have an inconsistent home. But it is only accurate to the next full step. And with Core XY, because of the long belts, there is a chance of false positives, false negatives, and just not being absolutely 100% consistent. And don't even bother looking at Z and stop sensorless homing. So technically you can run sensorless homing, but there's no real major point to it, because a $10 or a 10-cent KW10 micro switch off AliExpress will outperform it all day long. And you're not smashing your gantry into shit. Yes, the V0 display, Domenico. I have one somewhere. Let me find it. Okay, so the V0's display, that's been around for a couple months now. So the idea with the V0 display is with your V0 running the SKR Mini, you don't actually have a screen hookup, because the SKR Mini only has outputs for a TFT display, which it only supports the Ender 3 display, which uses its own connector. So it's not a ramps connector, it's like its own thing, and a TFT display, which Clipper doesn't support TFT displays. So the idea with V0 is kind of like how I was harkening back to earlier with Clipper. You just plug an MCU in. That's the V0 display. So that's a 1.3 millimeter or 1.3 inch OLED and a knob, and it actually has an MCU right there and a USB. So you literally add a couple lines to your Clipper config, plug this in with a USB cable, and boom, you have a full display. And so on this one, it has an encoder, and this one, it has buttons, up, down, kind of like how an ANET has it. But yeah, the PCBs aren't that expensive. You can get them made, and then you just have to solder on the screen and the USB plug and the controller, so either an encoder or the buttons. Because the idea was, let me see here. Yeah, I still got some. So if you buy JCL PCB or whatever it is, this is what you get, which is just the board with the SMD stuff on the back, and then you have to solder on a NeoPixel, and then however you're controlling it, and then your screen. And then you can just plug it into USB, and any Clipper powered printer can use it. You just plug it into USB, add a few lines to your config, boom, you're done. Oh, and flash the MCU, of course. So it's just one of those, cool things that we came up with. Micro B, I believe. Did all the V1 kits. I believe all the V1 kits that RCF made, most of them got built. I don't know if all were serialized though. I'm in Southern Ontario, Husky. So it was in Indiana, I believe. So I'll hop across the border. Mechatronic. I went over Taco Raven earlier in the stream. It's basically our own board that one of the devs, well, a few of the devs kind of worked on together and made it. So it's a standalone 32-bit Clipper controller board. There is none that you can buy. We only ever made 20 of them, I believe, 2 years ago, and they were definitely not worth the money. But it was just something we made. So a bunch of the devs have one. Okay, running some wires again. All the dog hair, oh my god. Actually, let me get, we have zip ties in this. Let me, oh, hope I didn't pinch anything. No, we're good. Good old zip ties. Making things look better than they are by jamming it into a something. There we go. There we go. Okay. When I get around to building my V0 after I finish my bonsai, V0 would... Yes. I have a bonsai on the shelf here. It's all mechanically complete. I just got to wire it up. That's probably my next project after I get this guy fixed. Well, up and running. So I do have a bonsai too. It's a little bit bigger than stock just because I used pre-cut extrusions I had lying around and leftover Voron parts. There we go. I might use a V0 display on this. The ones I have are pre the current revision, so they do have some issues. We redesigned them to be easier to mount. Because the revision I have doesn't really have a mounting solution to it. There's no like screw holes or anything. It's we kind of goofed there on that revision, but that's why you test stuff before you let it out in the wild. Okay, so these can come up and over. That in there. Get in your home. Okay, so instead of craning my neck, I'm just going to use the camera. Okay, yeah, those got wired. Okay, get back in your home. Come on. Okay, now before I go further, I just want to make sure that I don't have these wires too tight. because you do want a little bit of play and everything. You don't want, you know, wires pulling on stuff. Yeah, I think we're okay. Those aren't too tight. They're snug, but they're not tight. And then what I'm going to do is, if I can find some, I know some people hate this stuff, but you know what? It works. That's way too long. Just a little bit of cable wrapping. Make it look good. What is a bonsai? It's a little i3. The design's on Thingiverse. It's definitely, you know, not up to Voron standards, but it's a neat little design with some quirks. But when I tore apart my V1, I had a V1.5. I had pretty much enough leftover parts from either purchases for Voron Dev that never went anywhere, or other random printer parts that, like I had a Monoprice Select Mini I ripped apart, that I had to buy a bed and like 2 other components, and I had enough spare parts to build it. So it's literally all spare parts for me. There we go. Okay, so we're good there. And now we got to run them through this. Oh, it's going to be fun. Got all the dog hair. Showing you where my paper towels went. Oh my god. What crimper did I use for DuPont connectors? I use my PA09 for everything. Yeah, the bonsai extruder, while it isn't, you know, it's an old design. It's, you know, it's a Mark 8 direct drive extruder. It is a neat, you know, it is kind of cool. It's like literally a mini Prusa. So I got nothing against it. It's just, you know, it's a small, cheap little i3, and it literally cost me like $40 with all the spare parts I had lying around. So. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. So the little tabs can actually come off the chain. So be careful with that. There we go. Okay, where did I put my little... There it is. Screw. Yeah, the thing with the zip chains, when you're running a massive wire through them, it's fine. But oh hey, you forgot a wire. Run one more wire through it, and it gets caught on everything, and it's an absolute pain. So I will take these drag chains all day, any day now. Okay, so let's see what we got here to play with. Sure I don't have this too tight. Now there is more wire in this one than the X because of the end stops, so it may bulge up a little bit. I'm honestly not too worried about that. Yeah, so we're good there. Now I'm not liking this right here because this is going to rub on a panel. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the cable sleeving on it just to add a little protection. If I can even get this around. Probably not. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to. Oh well. I'll put a zip tie on it or something just to hold that in place. Because right now, if you look, this is bulging out the side ever so slightly. And I don't want that to happen because I really don't want that rubbing on a side panel, especially with during Z-hop and going up and getting caught. So let's see, do I have any point there? No, I don't have a point. I can zip tie that too. No, I can't go through there. Okay, maybe I'll just get by with just doing that for now. Yeah, that's not binding, so we're good there. Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're good. I think we're okay. Yeah, cable chains, like China drag chains, like it's like extrusions, right? Nobody used extrusions until they got cheap. Now everyone uses extrusions for everything. I got a feeling it'll be like that for drag chains. Everyone's going to use them now because it's like $10 for drag chains for the whole printer. Yeah, I know, dog hair. I got a Shepherd Retriever. So there's really nothing I can do about it. It just gets everywhere. He doesn't even come down here and there's dog hair everywhere. There's really nothing I can do about it. Okay. So now I got to run it around this corner and through the Z chain. And then we also got to add the motor wires in. So let's see here. I'm actually going to tighten this one up just a little bit because I won't have a chance to do it later because I got to connect it. So what I'm doing right now is with your, you should have a little bit extra of, what is it, belt. And you're just going to fold it back and zip tie it to the vertical belt. So I got to do that on this corner right now because I'm going to be running wire around it. I don't like doing it usually to the end, just in case you got to fiddle with anything. It just makes it easier. You're not wasting a zip tie. Not that they cost anything, but it's one of those things. There we go. Now I gotta sleeve it. I guess drag chains are really good, but they are pricey, as you said. I haven't noticed any issues with the China chain, so just leave that as I say. And yes, I use cable wrap versus like the sleeving. It's just easier, I find, especially with the silicone wires, because the silicone wires, they don't really, they're kind of a pain to force through things because they're so floppy and just they get stuck on everything. I just quickly wrap it in this stuff, bundle it all up. Especially makes it, if you gotta, do any maintenance on it later, easier. I will say another thing that sucks is the colors of the wires themselves are very like muted and drab. So hide them as much as you can, at least with the silicone wire. They just look ugly. Okay, that's good enough for now. Now, for this, we do have a printed component for hiding everything. So I believe this goes like this. Yeah, that goes on like that. And of course, for those that have been following along at home, what is it that I always forget to install when I'm supposed to install it before I put everything together? I'm sure some of you guys know already. Yes, heat set inserts. This attaches to the top of your, B motor? A motor with heat sets. So I gotta find where I put my shitty soldering iron. There it is. So this is a problem now. Because I have all these extra cameras, I actually don't have any more hookups for power. What can I unplug? Okay, good. Camera's on battery for a little bit. What thermistor am I using? The one that came in the pack that I've had for 2 years. I think it's from Triangle Labs. I'm not using a PT100. if that's what you're asking. I'm just using a standard thermistor. Oh, this is going to be fun. Yeah, I can get in there. Edwin, $9.99. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the stream. Yeah, I'll try not to melt the belt. I got it on the lowest setting. Again, every time I put a heat set in, you run it at the lowest setting you can, because they will be stronger. Because if you heat it up too much, you liquefy the plastic. ABS, if it gets way too hot, turns to like charcoal. I've seen it. Yeah, so you just want to gently set them in. In this case, I use 220. Don't melt the belt. Although this is Gates belt, so it should have a decent temp rating. There we go. Unplug that. Yeah, Edwin, that $9.99 is going to go to another, go towards another power brick for me, because this one's full. I've got monitors, I got a computer, you run out of power quick, or at least power outlets. Like these guys run on it, the printers run on a UPS over here, but that's their own thing. Okay, so heat sets are installed. So that goes like that. So actually I really did not need that much wiring. Yeah, so I only needed to go to about there. So let's undo most of this. Slice thermistor any good? It should be fine. I don't think there would be any issues with it. I didn't get one with my mosquitoes because of the cost, and I already have a bunch of TL heaters and thermistors, so I didn't see any point in spending much more than I did. There you go. Now I gotta fit this between the gap. All the wires. Goes down here. Yeah, Triangle Labs is the bomb. They make pretty much everything they make is pretty good. Like they are the gold standard in how to do Chinese production. Like the very first component I bought was an E3D V6 back in the day, and when I got my hands on a Triangle Labs one, I couldn't even tell the difference. So after that, I'm like, I am never, especially considering like a V6 is like $100-something up here in Canada. It's ridiculous for a hot end design that should have been retired a long time ago. Okay, trying to get the wires in this is kind of a pain. Yeah, Pouch makes good stuff too. There's a lot of Chinese vendors that... The thing with China, you just need to do your own QC and figure out who's good. Because think about it. iPhones are made in China. Nobody ever complains about Chinese build quality there. Everything's made in China nowadays. And then the Dragon is, well, that's a good hot end. So... trying to make sure I really don't pinch a wire here. Pretty sure I am, but I can't see. Oh, that guy there. Yeah, this part is kind of a pain in the butt to stuff everything in here and not have it sitting on anything. Okay, that's good there. What am I catching on here? Okay, we're good. We are good with that tunnel. Okay. Now, the problem is I did not grab a screw first. Shoot. 16 mil? Let's try 16 mil. Hopefully it's 16 mil. Sure, that'll work. I haven't tried anything for Mellow yet. I haven't ordered anything. I know they have the Skeeter knockoff, but Mellow, I haven't tried anything from them yet. Especially with, ongoing situation. There's a few random knickknacks I've ordered from China. One of those little like USB spy cameras. I'm going to try and put in Zero over there. I ordered that like 3 months ago. I have no idea where that's at. So the fact that free shipping isn't really a thing right now and stuff taking forever, the impulse buys off AliExpress have kind of gone away for now. Yeah, pouch belts are pretty good. Triangle Labs Gates is Gates. Somebody looked into it years ago, and basically it's Gates belts, but it's just manufactured for the Asia market. So they are legit Gates from Triangle Labs. They're just not made in the USA. They're made in China, or wherever they make it over there. But it's Gates manufactured for the Asian market. Yeah, Big Tree's pretty good. The SKR is a good board and whatnot. Okay, so we have that running there. I'm going to have to take this off and probably go up and out to get the wires through. And then we're going to have to add the wires for the motors, which I have pre-made. So this one is 1. And this one is 0. Wow, why did I make that so long? Oh, that's because on previous revisions like V2, this was centered. As you can tell, this is kind of long now to have the connector back there, but I'll make it work. Screw it. I'll just have them both there. Oh yeah. So, I have these parts here. These were meant for, I think we use them in V2 and V1, or V2.1 and 0.2, little wire clamps or whatever. You can just screw them into there. But I will do that later. Yeah, so that will go there and that will go there. Okay. Yeah, is MKS still making stuff? Like, I think they make a Duet clone now, but like I remember the S-Base and whatnot from back in the day. Okay, so let's see what we got here. a connector there. And I'm going to want one there. Okay. I'm probably going to need more screws. And peanuts. I will say T-nuts install into these Chinese extrusions a lot easier than you think they would, because they're not that good, but they work. Okay. That guy can go there. Edwin, PTFE versus silicone. If you're buying new, go PTFE. It should last longer, and it's not as tight in the drag chains. However, if you already have silicone, you could use it. Just be aware, after a couple hundred to a few thousand hours, you might have the odd wire let go on you. Like, I haven't had any issues with silicone in several thousand hours. But some people have had issues after a couple hundred. It's nowhere near like Cat 5 gate back in the V2.1 days. For anyone who's been around for that long that remembers Cat 5 gate. But it still is an issue enough that we don't recommend buying silicone anymore for new builds. Kind of like how, if you have a V2.1 and it's printing fine, you don't really need to rebuild it. Unless you want to. Okay, so... let's see here. So that could go there. And then that'll come back. Yeah, so that'll go there. Okay. Oh yeah, the Cat 5 cables. I have them trophy mounted to my wall. So yeah, I know all about that Cat 5. Hello, DB3D Dan. I'm going to call you Dan. Oh, wrong one. There we go. When you do your wiring, it's not a rush. Take your time as you do it. Make it look pretty. It just makes things easier down the line, trust me. Okay, so you can go there. Now some people don't like doing any cable management until it's up and running, in case you got to redo anything. YOLO. What was the problem with Cat 5? The problem with Cat 5 is pretty much it would wear out real quick and you would get breaks in the wire. Cat 5 used to be very common for 3D printers. Like if you go watch the old, even Tom Salamander had a video where he was going over how to wire up a printer. I think it was a little i3 there, made out of wood, and he was using Cat 5, I think, or it was in one of his recommended videos for wiring for 3D printers. Cat 5 used to be very common because you only needed 24 gauge for a lot of sensors and whatnot, and it's already paired up and color coded, so it's great. The problem is once you start stuffing it into drag chains with a constant bend radius, it wears out real quick. So yeah. So at first we're like, oh, whatever, we'll just use Cat 5 because everyone else uses Cat 5. And then it started failing left and right. And after that, we're like, yeah, don't use Cat 5 anymore. So live and learn. That's why I like Voron releases. Usually the printers are up and running months before they're released. Like my 2.2, I think, was in a functional state 4 or 5 months before 2.2 was released. Simply, we try to put at least a couple 100,000 hours on the machines before it goes public. That way, you're not printing everything off and then realizing, oh no, we screwed up on this part, reprint that, or oh, we got a major issue that you won't see any problems with until you hit 400 hours, for example. So that's why releases aren't right away. So that's why. Okay, so we got that going there, got that going there. Let's get a long one here. Yeah, and Raymond, that's motion rated Cat 5. We were just using, bulk Amazon basic Cat 5 for the most part. So, yeah. Live and learn. There we go. It's that part of the fun. Yeah, Raymond, trust me, I have boxes full of components that were, hey, let's use this let's try and make our own equivalent of a BL Touch or our own, type of sensor. I've got, at one point we tried having load sensors under the bed. We have spent a lot of time and money testing random stuff on Vorons that never made the light of day. Have I settled on a name? I don't know if it's going to be Tallboy or Silverback. I still keep calling it Tallboy, but with the back extrusion being silver, I might call it Silverback. I'll make a final decision once it's actually functional, because right now it's literally a pile of parts taking up room in my printing room. So until it's printing, I'm probably just going to keep referring to it as Tallboy. Okay. So, I'm going to take this off. Now this one is open in chain, which I don't like. Oh, this is going to be annoying. It's going to be real annoying. Yeah. Oh, this is going to be so annoying. Okay. Welcome to the party, David. Hope your build goes well. I've got plenty of videos, hopefully covering most of the stuff you'll need. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so how do these ones open? Other than keep falling on my head. Like that. Oh, these ones do. Okay, now I know why we don't recommend these ones. They got a really they don't really have a big opening. Oh, this is going to be annoying. Stay. Yeah, now I know why we don't recommend these ones. I do not like these chains. They'll work. I fully believe these will work. It's just these are going to be annoying, I got a feeling. Because these also open in versus open out. So I'm going to have to stuff everything in here and fight gravity. Yeah, this is super annoying. I probably could take it out and do it that way. Where's the fun in that? If it was easy, we wouldn't be doing it. Oh, broke one. Okay, where's that one that broke off? Ansel, 333. Appreciate it, man. I'm glad you are enjoying the videos. What kind of American wire gauge or wire section do you need? The steppers are 24 gauge wire, so the same wire using everywhere else. Yeah, Raymond, this is definitely not the Bay Fen Bay. I don't know what kind this is. We had a few that we were throwing around ideas, so we each bought different kinds, and I drew the short straw, I think. Or I could just blame Andre, because I think he recommended these ones. So I'll just blame Andre. Oh yeah, this is going to be super annoying. Okay, so let's see. Go like that. Now, luckily with the Z chain, because you're not doing a lot of movement with the Z, and it's slow movement, you really don't have to worry as much about the wires in the chain. You still should take care of them, make sure they're in there properly, but it's not like your X and Y, where they're going to go through thousands and thousands of repetitive movements. This is just going to go up and down every now and then during homes, and then once per print, essentially. And a little bit of Z hopping. Oh yeah, these ones are, oh my god, this is going to be annoying. I got one. Let me see. see if I can get a better view here. So it's super annoying because the pawls, actually I got more of this stuff. So if you look at the pawls on the chain, it can open both ways. So it only opens on the inside. There's nothing on the outside. So it only opens on the inside, but it can open both ways, I think. Unless it, yeah, see? So you can open it both ways, but that also means it can get caught on both sides. Oh, this is annoying. Yeah, I do not like this. I'm going to use it because it's the other option is either run off a set of printed zip chains or wait, you know, a millennium on China. But I will do this, but I will not enjoy it. Yeah, you might have to like stop and restart the stream. I notice it too on my end, how the delay keeps growing longer and longer. I'm up in Canada, so the wires in the ground are cold, eh? So it's slower. Oh man, this is so annoying. Yeah, I'm just going to do one at a time. Screw this. Because I really don't want to accidentally pinch a wire and not realize it and then be like, why does my thermistor not work? Fucking break out the multimeter and start hunting down a broken wire is always fun. Oh my god, these are horrible. Where's Andre at? Is Andre on Discord? I want to yell at him. Andre? Où est toi? Où est toi, Andre? Où est toi? I will take things that are super annoying for 500, Alex. Hey David, there's actually quite a few Canadians, a lot in the Ottawa area for some reason, and Montreal. I'm down as far south as you can go pretty much. Come on, why aren't you clicking? There we go. Oh god, if I was taking the time to actually manage these wires properly, I would be going livid right now. And broke. Okay, who was it that said zip tie? I'm going to try zip tying this. You come up here. I could sit on its side. Oh, screw it. Why don't I just sit on its side? I wasn't sitting on its side because of camera angles. Let's see here. Okay, you get a good view of the extrusion there. Yeah, good enough. There we go. There we go. Good enough. That works. Okay, I have 64 people watching me shove chain into or wire into a chain. So it's good to know everyone's having an exciting night as I am. And I do appreciate you all watching the stream, by the way. Because honestly, nothing's changed. I'm still down here by myself talking to myself. It's just now people are listening to me talk to myself. But no, if this all helps people get their printers built, it's all worth it. Because I know back when I started, I think we had a drive, a Google Doc drive with a couple pictures, and that's all we had really, back in V2.0 days. Still in frame, yeah. So another downside with this drag chain, you won't be able to see the wires in it. I kind of like being able to see the wires in the drag chain. It kind of gives that industrial look. It's like layer lines on a print. Some people hate them. I love them. Well, depending on the print, but for the most part. God, this is super annoying. I misplaced my tweezers and I don't know where I put them. Yeah, whatever. Past that point. What do I do for a living? I work in a tool shop. We build plastic injection molds. Okay, last one. That's a heavy drag chain. Okay. It honestly is pretty mainstream. Like it does come up in a lot of discussions about, you know, like not common, but like Core XY, rep wraps and whatnot. But you got to remember, it's not a company. There is nobody selling a product. Like there's the guys doing printed forward that make a couple bucks that they usually just put right back into printing parts and dev fund. There's the donate button on the Voron Design website. Any amount that I get donated on the stream goes directly into Voron or the stream equipment itself. So there's really there's no need for it to go mainstream because it's not, you know, it's not a product being sold. It's just, you know, a bunch of guys having fun designing a cool printer. Now, don't get me wrong, it is nice when it comes up in, you know, discussions as a, like, oh, hey, look at this awesome thing we found. But, you know, if Joel never reviews one, or Tom Salander never reviews one, it's not the end of the world because that's not really the point of Voron Design. It's just, you know, building rocket ships in your garage. Well, tool shed. You're getting every wire caught on everything. Ribbon cable instead of... I have seen some people use ribbon cable. I think it works just fine. I think. I haven't looked into it because I haven't used it. But I'm pretty sure some people have used ribbon cable. There we go. Oh, I can't wait till I get wireless headphones. Yeah, I am not a super big fan of this drag chain for Zed. It doesn't sit up straight. It's got a full pivot point on the one side here. This side is a fixed point, so it's not going to flop this way. But this, well, I got a feeling it's going to be doing this quite a lot. I'm probably going to actually put a dab of super glue or something to keep this locked in this position so it doesn't constantly tip over on me. Because I don't want it hitting this belt. But I don't think that'll be a big issue. But it is what it is. Now for the rat's nest. See, I know I gotta flip it over, install all the electronics. What time is it? That'll probably be next week. What I may do is I'm not using the, I'm not going to be DIN mounting everything like current spec, so that I don't have DIN rails on hand. And I already have all the mounts and everything printed for using like the mounting style we used on 2.2. So I might go ahead and install all the electronic components, at least mount them during the week. And then on stream, I'll actually do the connecting everything up, wiring up the basement compartment. I gotta make a bottom panel, get the bed all situated and everything. So I'll probably do that off stream so I can dedicate a whole stream itself to just mounting or wiring up the controller board and everything below deck, power supply and everything. Because right now also I'm gonna have to move some cameras around and whatnot, because with this upside down, I'm not gonna get a chair and stream the whole time on a chair, 8 feet in the air. So I'm probably going to have to move a camera, put this on the floor, and move some stuff around so I can actually have it captured on the stream of hooking up everything. Where did my tweezers go? This is really annoying me. Come on. I'm going to find them as soon as the stream ends. I know that. There we go. So right now I'm just going to do some cable management for a bit. And then I'll do my traditional QA open floor while I clean up. Just making this look a little bit better for now. I'll take some pictures and put them up on the Discord as well in the build progress section. Yeah, coffee table. I'm probably honestly just going to set it right on the floor here and put the camera right here and face down and just sit here the whole time. I'll probably end up doing that because that's usually what I do. I usually build a lot of this on the floor because then you can just walk around it and I'll just sit my butt on the floor and just spin the printer and whatnot. Put it on a piece of cardboard so it slides and you're good to go. Okay, so let's see here. See how I got my travel. Now again, once everything is wired up, you want to make sure you have full freedom of movement. Your chains aren't binding. Mac asking what controller board I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a Taco Raven. I've gone over it a few times in the stream already. I went more in depth near the beginning of the stream, but it's a custom 32-bit controller board that we designed. So it's fully custom, specifically for Voron. I hate moving the gantry without motors, especially on these tall ones. But right now, I'm just moving it up all the way, just to ensure that I have enough clearance on everything for the chains. And nothing's gonna bind. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so that's gonna hit there. So there's my ZMax right there. Now, these rails, this may look like it's going up a lot higher than normal. That's because these rails are longer than what would be spec for a frame this size. But instead of ordering like 460 something millimeter rails, because again, oddball size frame, I just ordered like 500 millimeter rails and they just go up high and I'll just software limit it to whatever I'm comfortable with, which I think I measured it last week. I get 390 millimeters of Z on this guy. But I probably will limit it to like 375 or something just to be safe. I don't like going up all the way to the top because honestly, I barely go above 100 millimeters on this guy. Okay, so that's good there, and then we come down. And we're good. Okay, so I can move this one over a bit. So that's good there. I'm just setting the chain guide. That's good. That's not binding up. Everything's good there. Back up a bit. There we go. I do find with the China chains, they do take some time to kind of wear in because of their the molds they use aren't exactly the greatest. Plus, with these printed end parts, it doesn't limit it. I believe the stock ones limit it from kicking up. These ones don't. So this side, I might have this kicking up constantly because the stock ones doesn't do that. Unless I install these backwards, but too late at that point. I am not redoing this. Yeah, I installed these chains backwards. That's why. Oh well, I am not redoing it. I'll just deal with it doing this because that's what it is. Okay, good movement. Oh yeah, I still got to take these little red nubs out. The little stops on the rails. There we go. One. Is there a Voron design that doesn't use linear rails? The previous, all current revisions do. If you're looking for one that uses rods, you have to look at the V1 pre 1.6 and previous. So V1.0, 1.5, and 1.6. Now everyone uses rails, except for the Z motion on the V1.8 current. That still uses rods, but X and Y use rails now. There we go. So we're good there. Okay. There we go. So we are good there. Sweet. Okay, so we got good motion everywhere now. That doesn't bind up there. Perfect. Sweet. Okay, IDEX. IDEX in Core XY is really a no-go because each tool head would need its own X and Y belt to move. So you would actually have to run two gantries essentially stacked for IDEX to work on a Core XY. So it's not really a feasible item. IDEX works good on i3 style printers or cube style printers where it's like a Cartesian where you have one motor for X and one for Y. That way you could just double up an X motor for IDEX function. This you would have to double up both A and B motor. So IDEX doesn't really work. Can you convert rods to rails? Are you talking like what Voron are you looking at, or is it another printer that you're looking to convert from using rods to rails. Just need a little bit more information there, Mac. Have a good one, Stefan. I'll probably be heading out soon as well. I got all my wires run here. And I'll probably be calling it as well. So we shall see. I think everything's good. But yeah, I'll probably be calling it very soon. Right now I'm just going to clean up and leave the floor open while I do that. If anyone has any questions, open question period. And I'll probably sign off. It's 11 o'clock right now, so I'll probably give it another 15 minutes. One day I am going to try and do, because I work afternoons, I could do a morning stream. But I know a lot of people wouldn't be able to reach that because they'd be at work. So I might just do a, well, I'm working on something else, morning stream for the European crowd. But I'll post something about it if that's going to be a case. Mac, any Cubic 4 Macs? There may be plans or stuff on Thingiverse or other projects or Discords. Asking the 3D printing Discord. They would know more about general other printers. My experience with printers is Voron and a Monoprice Select Mini. So yes, you can convert, a rod printer to a rail printer. It depends on how much work you want to put into it. If there's something you can just print and slap it together, you're good. Or are you going to be designing stuff? That's something you're going to have to look into. So, could you get a video dedicating building the V0 screen? That's why I don't have mine all assembled. I'm probably going to do a video on how to solder one up and how to get it working. Now, the ones I have aren't the exact current revision, but parts-wise they're exactly the same. It's just the board on the current revision is a little bit better for more mounting or easier mounting, and I think it uses a different connector for the USB, so it comes straight out the back versus out the side, but essentially it's exactly the same. Functionally, it's the same. So there we go there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to switch this around. I think I have the wrong connectors in one end, but I'm not overly worried about it at this time. See if I can get in here and fix this. So much room. Yeah, I have to swap these. This will be fun. Okay, so that's got to come off. This guy's going to have to pop out. Oh, I won't be able to do that. Nope, never mind. I'm going to have to change the whole cable. I'll do that later. If anyone's curious what I'm doing, I have my one of the drag chains is backwards. Or it works, it's just kind of binding a little bit. But I think that's because of the printed end pieces. I'm not too sure. I'm going to have to look into it later. It's not a major issue, but something I'll fiddle with off stream. I may just have to redo that one. So what is the advantage of moving the gantry instead of the bed, for example? So your printer bed is heavy. Technically, this gantry, even though it looks big, it is lighter than your bed. So one, you have less moving mass. Two, your bed is the heaviest part of the printer. It's lower. All your electronics are underneath the printer. It's low. So what that means is when the printer is running, it's stable. So all your weight is down low. It's a low center of gravity. If you've ever done a physics class or whatever, lower center of gravity is more stable. Another advantage is with a moving bed, you're starting up here. So that means your moving mass is up higher. So the majority of prints are small. Very few people print consistently, filling the entire print volume every time. Most people print shorter items, right? Most people don't max out their Z on their print volume. So when you have a low bed and you start low, your printer is more stable. You can run higher accelerations, higher corner velocities or jerk settings, and your prints will come out more consistent with less wobbling in them, or wobble induced errors, essentially. Also, consistency of moving mass. So on a bed flinger, for example, you got your bed moving back and forth. Your bed's going to behave differently when there's nothing on it versus when you have half a kilogram of plastic on it. Same thing with a Z printer, or traditional Core XY where the Z moves. Now, it's not as big of a deal because the bed moves slowly in one direction, but on this printer, your consistent XY motion, the mass is unchanged throughout the entire print. So essentially, everything that moves in this printer will remain or behaves the same at the start of print versus at the end of print. So, where can I get your control board from? The files for it are on the Voron GitHub. You're going to have to make it yourself. It is not a sellable item. No stores carry it. We designed it ourselves. There was only ever 20 made. And this was over a year ago. So it's something you would have to look into yourself. It's not worth it price-wise. Just go dual SKR. Let's see. Oh yes, Raymond, it does have the jumper. I had to actually desolder my boards and fix the routing on that. So I think I'm going to call it there, guys. This has been a pleasure, as always. Anyone who stayed for the full stream or just showed up at any point for any amount of time, I appreciate it. Glad you kept me company. I'm glad I kept you company. And if anyone had any questions that I went over and helped you with your build in any way, I hope you have a good build. I'm really bad at outros. It takes me like 5 or 6 takes to record the outros to my tutorial videos, by the way. But yeah, so I'm hoping everyone had a good time tonight. Yeah, wash your hands and have a good one.